us the MD and CEO, Sunil Souza, as well, joining in on the line. Sunil, hi, good morning. Great to have you on the show. Festival greetings from all of us, and apologies to keep you waiting in the thick of earnings. So just so many numbers to crunch.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, absolute pleasure to be here, and wishing all of you and all the viewers of ET Now a happy Diwali in advance.
Wish you the same as well. Sunil, tell me what the demand trends are currently, especially when it comes to out-of-home consumption products, given the international markets where inflation is clearly weighed in on the performance in the second quarter. What really is the reality on ground zero?
Yeah, so before I get into it, just a very, very top level view of our numbers. We declared results yesterday, 11% top line growth, 4% EBITDA growth, and 36% group net profit. All our businesses on a very strong footing. India Beverages almost flat, -2%. Foods on a roll at 29% growth. International up 7%. India growth businesses up 50%. Ready to drink up 64%. Sampann 37%. Soulful 112%. Financially, strong wicket. We've improved margins in all our India businesses. India EBITDA actually was up by 25%. Improvement on margins on packaged beverages. The growth businesses growing 50% and improving margins, gross margins by 30 basis points. Strategically, we feel we are in a good spot. Yes, there's softness on India Beverages, but we've held market shares. Salt, we've continued to grow market shares. Outlets, we said 1.5 million by March. We're already at 1.4, so we'll exceed that. A&P, we're continuing to power ahead. We are now at 6.4% for the half year versus 6.1% last year. We're getting leverage on costs. Employee costs, for example, are 30 bips better. Innovation 2x what we launched last year. So all in all, we feel good. But you're right, there are two pieces specifically, and these are showing in our numbers for this quarter. A is in the India piece, there is a bit of softness on demand. Very specifically semi-urban, rural, and more, I would say, Hindi belt, so to speak. But the good news out there is, actually speaking, everyone was predicting, saying as we get into the festivals and as the monsoon normalizes, we will see demand coming back. Very, very early days. We are seeing a better second half of September and early October. But we've got to distill the festival numbers out of it, so I'm not making a comment. I do think we will see pressure will be less than last quarter, but we will see pressure for at least a quarter on that piece. On out of home specifically, I think COVID is behind us, and I think we're up and about. Like I said, our Nourishco business is mostly out of home, and we're up by 64%. Feel good about that. Our Starbucks business, very, very strong wicket. We're up by 57% versus last year. Our same store sales versus pre-COVID is up by 24%, and we're a bit positive. As regards international, I think it's a perfect storm hitting us out there, whether it is inflation, demand, and currency. We've got to tackle it, plans in place. We are seeing much more than what we anticipated on inflation, both in the US and UK. We are geared for that. We are taking pricing. In UK, it's already in force. In the US, we've already announced it, excepting it takes a bit of time with the retailers to sink it in. Currency is an issue. We have both transaction and translation, because all tea internationally is bought in dollars, but we sell it in the UK in pounds, so you know what the pound is doing. And then, of course, when you translate it into Indian rupees, the pound is depreciated, so that's the other piece. All in all, multiple moving factors. What we feel good about is whether you look at all the big KPIs, market shares, whether it is financials, I think we're in a good place. Incidentally, while we will say pressure in international markets, in the UK, we've now moved beyond Twinings, and we're the number 3 player. So structurally, we're in a good place. We just got to put our head down and tackle this demand and inflation piece.
Yeah, how do you intend to do that though? And given that rural has actually lagged the urban markets, I wanted to understand also what's the breakup in growth numbers. If you could just give me precise numbers.
So actually for us, overall, rural is growing faster than urban, but that's an anomaly because we always had a lower share in urban than, in rural rather than urban. So we are doing 2, 3 things to make sure that we're tackling this. Number one is we are dramatically increasing the number of wholesalers and therefore our reach into rural, focusing on the specific packs which go into rural. We're up on super stockists by 20% year to date, and we aim to take that number up still significantly. And number two, in specific parts of the country where we are seeing softness, we've taken pricing actions. And that is why you'd see while we have gained 10% on volume, we are down by 50 bips. We have gained 10 bips on volume. We're down 50 bips on value share because we have made pack price correction just to get that simulated. And like I said, the other thing is we do think that the economy will come back given the good monsoons, etc., and all the actions that the government is doing.
Mr. D'Souza, good morning. Nikunj also joining in. Large part of your business is centered around what happens to tea, what is happening to tea price trends. Tea as a commodity has seen a decline, and the decline started 2 quarters ago. That should have got captured in the way how things would have moved for that vertical, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, so Nikunj, factually right if you look at the long-term trends, because in India, supply is greater than demand for tea, and therefore pricing needs to come down. It had gone up during COVID, and after that it was a secular trend downwards. Now, 2 things have sort of flattened the curve right now. Number one is the whole Sri Lanka story, and therefore Orthodox going out of the market. So a lot of the Indian suppliers have shifted to Orthodox, and therefore CTC has there's an impact on CTC, and therefore it is flattish. A. B, the floods in June, July did impact crop in Assam in July and August. Right now we're seeing them trending just about 10 rupees higher than last year, but I do expect going forward tea prices will come down, and that will come into our financials as we go forward. So medium term, not even long term, I would say medium term, that's the trend which will come.
Everything what you've just enumerated to, if it comes true, economy is back, tea prices remain stable, the food minus beverage business does very well for you, then how will the second half be different from first half? Because first half was all about managing cost, struggling with inflation, trying to get the house in order in terms of getting the cost efficiency. If all that reverses, then are we looking at a incremental jump in the second half?
So I would break the second half into 2 parts, Nikunj. I would say this quarter for India is, I would say, still a wait and watch because we are seeing early signs, but I would still reserve judgment. International, like I mentioned, we've got to take pricing actions, we've got to take currency actions, and we've got to take structural cost actions, which will take about a quarter. So for us, I would say this quarter is still, I would say, broadly in the same ballpark, but going forward, you're absolutely right. Once we get this in track and assuming the macros turn around, I think we are very, very well positioned because I keep telling my teams there are 2 basic factors which are the indicators for a strong business. Market share, which gives you your strength in the market, where we are good on tea, we are continuing to strengthen on salt, and you see all our growth businesses on a very, very strong trajectory. And the second one is margins. And like I enumerated, our margins have come back more or less where they should be. So if the volumes come back broadly, I think they're in a very good place.
Mr. D'Souza, morning, you did speak about, tea prices and how the tea business is shaping. But given that coffee prices as well have been quite soft, what's your outlook on how the coffee business is likely to shape up?
So on coffee, we have actually 3 different businesses. We have 8 o'clock in the US, we have coffee in India, consumer business, and we have Tata Coffee, which is a subsidiary. Now, Tata Coffee will obviously have the benefit of increased coffee prices as we go forward, and they're feeling very good about it. 8 o'clock coffee in the US, like I said, coffee prices going up in a very rapid succession. We were hedged for some time, and now we're putting up new hedges. So little bit of pressure, but we're taking pricing and it should be back on stream. US actually very strong growth, very, very good margins, and therefore it will come back in the next, I would say 45, 60 days. India coffee, we feel very, very good. We grew coffee by 39%, albeit on a small base, but we are continuing to power ahead, continuing to gain share. So overall coffee is a big growth driver for us, and we feel good about it.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Now, you did speak of inflationary trends cooling off and how you're dealing with it globally, but I just wanted to understand a little bit more in terms of the margin picture, because on a year-on-year basis, that has been flat. So just the question is the worst over when it comes to your margins then?
Again, I'm breaking it into two pieces. I think in the India part, I think broadly margin pressure is over. Maybe there will be a little bit range bound going forward. International, I don't think we are out of the woods yet, simply because we've got to take pricing actions, we've got to take cost measures. That is in play, and like I said, it will probably take a quarter for us to get that.
Could we see a sequential decline in the international business? And I'm talking about business. Let's keep the currency part aside, because then that becomes a assumption of whether it is dollar, whether it is pound, or whether it is some other currency. But do you see a decline in the product demand in your global business? Because that changes the paradigm completely then.
No, I don't think so, Nikunj. I feel very good about demand. Overall revenue for the international business will continue to grow. Last quarter, we had grown 9%. This quarter, there was a bit of pressure. We grew 7%. So growth, I don't think is an issue. It's just about getting the margin structures right.
Just to wrap it up with two more final questions. What happens to the non-beverage business? See, salt is where you have pricing power because there is hardly any raw material involved in it. But pulses is where the inflationary impact would be there. MSP hikes have taken over. That's a business which you're building, and that's a business which is going up because of a low base. What happens to the growth of that kind of a business in this kind of an inflationary environment?
So Nikunj, if I take tea out and salt out for a minute, because we are growing into a total food and beverage company, we feel good about all the businesses. Like I said, ready to drink is up by 64, despite the pressures on cost, because you have PT preforms which are experiencing inflation. Sampan, which is pulses, spices, etc., is growing 37%. Soulful is growing 100% plus. Starbucks is growing very well. Now, specifically to your question of Sampan and pulses, the good news is we very, very specifically said we've got to do two or three things in the business. A is we've got to ramp up our procurement engine. Number two, we've got to get logistics rights. And number three is we've got to ramp up our branding. All three in play. We've started to put money behind Sampan branding. We've got our procurement engine in place. So pulses had a very good growth. On top of that, I think the GST which has come in on packaged goods, including pulses, helps us because that spurs the drive from the unorganized to the organized. So all in all, we feel good about where we are. On top of that, in Sampan, one of the big thrusts for us was we were not playing in spices in the South. South is 40% of the market. We've just about launched, and you know what? When the sales guys come and say, boss, we need more, and we need to go to more geographies because this is a product which works, then you feel good about it.
So let's wrap it up with one final question. There is a buzz, and I'm going to ask you a direct question, that you are looking at picking up stake in Bisleri. I will pause it. I will let you respond. And I will not allow you to say no comments.
So here's the thing. I mean, media speculates on 10 different things, Nikunj. So I would not comment on speculation going around.
Clarify it, sir. That is the reason I'm asking you this question. Let's end the speculation. You can tell me a yes, no, and then the speculation ends right now. It's a chance for media not to speculate and the man in the helm to answer whether the speculation is right or wrong. That is the best way, right? You'll appreciate it.
So Nikunj, let me leave it with, if there is something happening, you'll be the first person to know.
Would you be looking at or interested in the distilled water category?
We are going to be a total food and beverage company. We are in the beverage business. We are in the food business. We are in packaged tea. So we are looking at the entire playing field. Organic and inorganic growth is on the table. I would just leave it at that.
Missing part of your portfolio. I'm using the liberty. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to discuss this with Aisha and Avan here. I think water is a category where you're not present, and you've had experience of water in the past because of the acquisition of Himalayan. So you are there, but you're in the niche water category. Now, looking at your growth and ambition, see, that's how media thinks, Mr. D'Souza, that where is the growth, where is your expansion, you're talking about big numbers,
and where's the opportunity?
And where is the opportunity? We're going to leave it there, sir.
So just Nikunj, I'll just like to correct one of the points is Himalayan is doing very well. They're growing close to 50%. We are in Tata Copper Water, which is in the same drinking water, and it is growing 2x versus last year. So right now, and I would say overall our RTD business is projected to be north of 500 crores by the end of this year. So we're in a good place overall in the beverage space.
So really appreciate your time. You've been very frank, you've been very candid, and I really appreciate your time today. Good numbers. Naya saal, nayi shuruaat, and let's really hope that it's indeed a Naya saal, nayi shuruaat for you personally, your family, your daughters, your shareholders, and everyone at the Tatas.
Thank you, Nikunj.